Hello, I heard that you want to be a flight attendant. Well, to be a flight attendant, you must have a great personality. You must be able to smile. You must make everyone feel welcome when they walk onto your airplane. Your airplane is your living room, is your home. You need to make people feel welcome when they walk on. Greet them with smiles and treat them like you would want someone to treat you. So, the way that I would recommend that you can become a flight attendant is first, find out about the airlines. Find out where you would like to be based and what airlines are close or in the city or state where you live. So, you can also commute. A lot of flight attendants commute from where they live to where they're based at. When you are starting off as a reserve flight attendant, that's very, very hard because you have to commute to your base station and you have to be available for a phone call. When you have days that you are scheduled to work, you have to be there for 2 hours. You have to be at the airport within 2 hours of your call time. So if you are a commuter and live outside of the state that you're based in, that means you have to get on an airplane, you have to fly to the city or state or country where you're based at, and you either have to sit in a hotel, have you a place to live, or a crash pad. Crash pads are like maybe an apartment or a house or something where you share with other people. You may have a bed of your own. You may have a bed that you share with other flight attendants or pilots or whatever who also pay rent for the month. They have a bed either of their own or either when they come to that facility. That's your crash pad. So to be a flight attendant first, once you establish what airlines fly in either somewhere close to where you live or somewhere where you think that you can live for a temporary basis or a long-term basis or be able to commute to with a reasonable amount of time or fairly decent or easy commute. You don't always get to be a flight attendant in a city or state or country where you live, but long as you can get there within the time that is allotted for you on the days that you're scheduled to work, then you can do it. So first off, if you want to be a flight attendant, like I say, you find the airline or you just maybe Google what states have airline where their bases are. And I would recommend that you go to each airline that you can think of and see, first of all, if they're hiring. Because once you find out if they're hiring or not, they'll have the guidelines on what they expect for you to do. Commuting, like I say, is very, very, very important because you have to be able to get to the job. You have to determine if you want to work for a regional airline. Regional airlines are the airlines that go to the smaller cities and states. Mainline airlines are the ones that go to the larger states and cities and countries. Regional go to countries too, but it just depends. They won't go very far distances. Generally, they don't hold as many passengers as a mainline airline does. So the biggest difference between regional and mainline is money. You make a lot more money in most cases working for a mainline airline versus working for a regional airline. An example, American Airlines. That's a mainline company airline. So they go, as most of you know, all over the world. Okay, American Eagle is owned by American Airlines, and they just go to the smaller cities and states. So they owned by American, but they go to, most of the time, totally different cities and states than what American Airlines themselves go to. Sometimes the difference in pay could be from regional to mainline can be anywhere from $5 to $10 more an hour. Mainlines pay more because they go further distances, longer flights, and all over the world. Whereas regional, I'd say the average could be as short as a 20-minute flight to maybe 4 hours. Would be most likely the longest flight time that they would go, whereas mainline, I would say the minimum that they would probably travel, I would think maybe a 2-hour flight to 15, 16, 18-hour flights, so you get more money. As being a flight attendant, most of the airlines guarantee you 75 hours of pay, whether you fly or not. I started in a regional airline, so 75 hours a month doesn't mean that you're only going to work 75 hours. It's kind of hard to describe. Okay, the easiest way to describe it is you're guaranteed 75 hours whether you fly or not. When I was working for the regional as a reserve flight attendant, that means that I lived in California and I had to commute. My base was in Dallas, Texas, and I had to be available for a phone call within 2 hours of my starting time. Now, when you're starting off and you're on reserve, you have no idea what your schedule is, if you're going to work or if you're not going to work. But if you're on the books to work, you most likely better be in the city of where your base is in case you get that phone call. So I would end up having to fly all the way to Texas from California, and I chose to just stay in hotels, which that can add up in money. Some people get crash pads, that way they don't have to, they just pay one lump sum and they can stay in their crash pad. So with the hotels or whatever, I would stay in hotels on the days that I was assigned to work, and I would wait for a phone call to say, yes, you're going to work, no, you're not. Okay, so with the 75 hours, I was guaranteed 75 hours of work, but that means 75 hours of flying time. Didn't always fly 75 hours. A lot of times as a reserve person, I was flying between 30 and 35 hours a month, but I still got paid for 75. So some of you say, that's good, but even though I wasn't flying all of those 75 hours, which is really 2 weeks of work in the average world, but I was having to stay in Dallas as if I was working full time because we only got 11 days a month off. So if you got 31 days in a month, those other 20 days, you got to be in Dallas waiting for a phone call. So it was a lot of waiting and a lot of wondering if you were going to work or if you weren't, when you were going to work or when not, where you were going to fly to, how many days, how many hours, how many times to go sit in the airport for standby, how many times to sit at your hotel or your crash pad or your apartment, whatever you had, and wait for a phone call. So if you live in the city or state where you're based at, when you're a reserve, it can actually be pretty good because you can stay at home until the phone call comes. Once the phone call comes, you need to make sure that you are in the airport to be able to sign in within your 2-hour time frame or the time that your crew schedulers tell you that you need to be there. So backing up to being a flight attendant, once you see what each airline, for one, if they're hiring, and for two, what their guidelines are, you need to make sure that you fit what they ask of you. Secondly, I would just say go to each airline. If they are hiring, apply. See if they call you back. See if they want you to come in. See if they want you to do a video interview. See if they want you to do assessment tests. So you just have to meet the guidelines on what they ask of you, and then sit and wait for the next step to happen. Either a call, either an email, either nothing. Some of them may not say too much of anything, but you hope you get some kind of response back. So then the next important thing about becoming a flight attendant is to be able to, you have to do those assessments and make sure that you qualify to, I guess, to get their attention on what they want. And then if you end up going for your interviews or whatever they require of you and you are what they want, then the fun part starts. You go to school. All of the airlines have schooling and training that you have to go to. Now, for me, with the regional airline, I had to go to school for 3.5 weeks. Those were 3.5 of the hardest weeks I have ever experienced because I had no idea what was to be expected. People think that flight attendants are just glorified waitresses or waiters that are in the sky and just serving you drinks and chips and snacks. Well, the 3.5 weeks that we were in training, we learned more about health and safety as far as first aid. We learned first aid, how to perform CPR, how to do some simple first aid procedures if somebody maybe had a stroke, or we learn about heart attacks, kind of what to spot if somebody gets sick, how to help them initially. We're not doctors. If somebody cuts himself, if somebody's not breathing, if someone falls, if someone chokes, if someone, whatever. We have breathing machines, or if it's a fire, if it's where the plane maybe is having decompression, that means the seals around the plane is not working right, and you're starting to get outside air, and you're over 10,000 feet up in the air, and you can't breathe. It's all kind of stuff like that we have to learn, and you have to learn it within, for the airline I was working for, 3.5 weeks. You have to learn it all. You take 1, 2, maybe 3 tests in 1 week. You have to pass. We had to pass all of our tests with 90% or higher. And then at the end, you have a final. And in my class, there was one guy in particular that wanted to be a flight attendant really, really bad. He passed every test throughout the whole 3 weeks, and at the very end took the final, and I think just choked up on the final, didn't pass it, and they sent him home. So throughout the 3 weeks, they let you take your tests. If you didn't get 90%, then you got to take it again, and if you didn't get 90% the second time, they sent you home. So it's very, very stressful. Very, it was hard. I hated school. And so we learned more about first aid and how to help someone or spot different things if people are in trouble than we did about serving you a soft drink, or, how to make drinks. You know, people, I wasn't a big drinker. People would ask, say, I'm working first class. I want a screwdriver. And I'm like, okay, what's a screwdriver? What is alcohol in a screwdriver? What is it? So they'd have to tell me. I remember the first time somebody asked me a Bloody Mary. They wanted a Bloody Mary, and I'm like, okay, never had one before. What's in a Bloody Mary? So I had to ask passengers, and even sometime now, they'll be like, yeah, I want, and be like, okay, I want to make sure I get the drinks right. So yeah, I'm still learning how to be a bartender. But yeah, I enjoy being a flight attendant, and some of you guys still call it stewardess. Don't call it stewardess. That's the old-fashioned term. The term now is flight attendant. So if you love people, you love to travel, and here's the thing about traveling. People are like, I want to travel. I want to get the benefits of traveling. Well, when you're starting off, sometimes the money isn't that great. Like I say, if you do mainline, you make more money. It could be $5 to $10 more an hour, but keep in mind you have longer training for school. Okay, so mainline is generally anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks of training. Regional is roughly about three weeks of training, and the reason why mainline is more versus regional, mainline usually has more airplanes that you have to learn about as far as where all of the first aid equipment is in case somebody is distressed or emergency happens. Mainline, because they fly further, they deal with water. If they had to get rafts and you had to evacuate the plane through water. Regional, we go over some water, but not like a mainline airline would. So we didn't have to like jump in the rafts and learn how to swim or swim to the raft or whatever, help people out. We learned like jumping into slides and getting out the airplane pretty much on land, but in some water procedures, but not big bodies of water like a larger airline may fly over. But here's the thing I forgot to tell you. When you go to school, the 3 weeks, the 6 weeks, the 8 weeks, most of the airlines do not, I repeat, do not pay you to go to school. So even though they say, yes, we would love to have you come and be a part of our airline, most likely they're not going to pay you. So you have to be willing to go to school and not get paid. And you have to pass. With my airline, we went, like I say, the 3.5 weeks without getting paid. That's the ground training. That means in school every day, 6 days a week, 8 to 10 hours per day, 2 to 3 tests per week, passing at 90% of the time. So with the major airlines, theirs are about the same, but it's more aircraft that you have to learn and more procedures that you have to learn. And again, you have to pass with the flying colors of usually 90% or more. And then after you pass the ground part with the testing and everything, and with our company, then we were able to get paid after we passed the final and did all of the other tests in school. But then we still had another portion to pass. We had to do like in the air training where we actually got on an airplane, and then we had to see if the skills that we learned in school, if we can do them in person with real passengers. And we had someone watching us and grading us to say whether or not they thought we were ready to go in the air and be flight attendants. Now, the thing that was really scary for me is the first time I got up there, there were so many different things that you had to do when you work the first class that I didn't know all of that stuff because we did so much on first aid and training. We didn't do a whole lot about simple things like drinks, preparing drinks for passengers before you take off in the air, taking jackets, coats, hanging them up. And you have to make sure that you write down what seat they were in, so when you give them back, you give them to the right person. Then we had to make PAs, which are public announcements, to say where the aircraft is flying to, tell people to make sure they put their bags in overhead compartments under their seats, make sure your seat belts are fastened, and you still got to make sure you get all the drinks, make sure you have the jackets up, make sure that you have people putting their stuff under their seats so it's not blocking the aisle. Sometimes people be thinking flight attendants is just messing with them. So here's something. When we say put your bags under the seat so that they do not block the path of the aisle, it's not because we want to give you a hard time. It's because in case of an emergency, if you had to jump up and run, oh yeah, we need the seats up. We don't need you to be reclined in the seats when you're taking off and when you're landing. Those are some of the most critical periods on an airplane. So we tell you these things because in case of an emergency, if you have to get up and jump off the airplane ASAP, you don't need to be tripping over your bags or somebody else's bag that didn't move them out the aisle, nor do you need to be trying to squeeze out of a seat because someone ahead of you has their seats back. So those are some of the key points on why we tell you guys to put your seats in the upright position, put your table trays up, and put your bags underneath your seat. We're not just trying to mess with you. It's for your safety. So we always believe in safety first, and that's one thing that I am very proud to say, that with me working in this field, I have seen safety does come first. They want to make sure that the aircraft is operating properly. They want to make sure that we are following guidelines of FAA. They want to make sure that the items inside the airplane, the safety items, your breathing equipment, your equipment to use in case somebody has a heart attack, your equipment for your masks, oxygen masks, your equipment for, we have other equipment that in case you need a horn to say something loud to people, flashlights, your life jackets, your seat belts, that all of those things are there, that they're working, and that we know where they are and how to operate them in case of an emergency and just to keep people safe. But safety has always been the first priority. We try to do online on-time departures so that people can get from point A to point B when they were told. Sometimes that doesn't happen because of nature, because of aircraft problems, whatever, but we try our best to do that. So, if you want to be a flight attendant, you got to be ready to work and have fun at the same time. So, it's a lot of work to become a flight attendant. And once you get into the job and you actually start doing the job, then you start having fun with it because you start feeling more comfortable and more confident in your job and in your career. And if you like to meet people and you like to travel all over the world, after you get into it for a while and you get to making more money, or say for instance if you're young or whatever and you live with your parents and you can take your money and you can go flying all over the place with it. When you're older, maybe not so quickly, because you can fly all over the world maybe for free or close to free, but you still got to eat, you still got to have hotels. And yeah, we get discounts in a lot of those places, but sometimes You don't have the extra money for that because you have bills that you got to pay. But anyway, we do get some perks of the flying and be able to see the world sometime while we're working. A lot of times we'll fly to point A to point B and stay overnight, but you're so tired through the day that you don't have the energy to go see anything else. Or either you push yourself and you get to see a little bit. Or you may get lucky and have a day off in the city or state or country where you're working on company time. Then you can really go see the sights for a day or a few hours or whatever, and then hop back on your plane or go back, get ready for the night to prepare for the next day for an early morning flight, whatever. But you do get an opportunity to kind of see the world here and there, not all the time, but sometime. But one of the most rewarding things for me is to be able to make people smile and to just have fun with my passengers. I like people to feel warm and fuzzy, and one of my favorite sayings is to be fabulous. I always say I'm extra fabulous because I'm over 40. And then I ask the passengers, who's fabulous on the plane? And then I get people to participate, some of them. Anyway, I like to make people feel fabulous. I like to have fun. I like to make them smile. And I really like my job and enjoy it because I'm a people person. I love to talk to people. I love to learn about people and just have a good time. So if you want to be a flight attendant, of course, as with anything else, there's good, there's bad, and there's ugly. So you try to get the best out of it, see if it's for you, try it out. You never know. If it's something that you thought about doing, go for it, try it out, see if it works for you. If it doesn't, at least you can say you tried. That's what I did. I wasn't sure I wanted to do this. I wanted to do it when I was much younger, but when I got older, I wasn't sure. But I figured, well, if things keep opening up for me, if I pass school and things do well for me, I'll keep moving forward. If it works out for me, I'll keep doing it. If it doesn't, I can say at least I tried, been there, done that, and then I move on. But so far, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the life of being a flight attendant. Yeah, sure, it has its challenges. It has its challenging days. But so far, I think I've had more rewarding days and more happy days doing my new career, my career that I've been doing, than I've had bad days. So, as in life, we have to make it what it is. We have to make the best of it, or else it'll be bad. So, we have to wake up every day thinking the positive is going to happen rather than the negative. We determine our days, and when negative is thrown at us, try to shake it off, try to keep going, try to move on. That too shall pass. So anyway, enough is enough. I've talked your head off, but if you want to be a flight attendant, remember, look and see what airlines are hiring, see what they require for you to do, apply for the job, follow the instructions on the next steps. If they say that thank you but no thank you, don't give up. If you're really determined, either try another airline or wait the 6 or 8 months or a year that they tell you and apply again. If it's something you really want to do, don't give up on it. Keep trying. I've had friends that have went to school and didn't know what to expect and thought it was going to be easy, but school is no joke. And so you really have to be determined to be ready to study. We went to school 6 days a week. Like I say, 8 to 10 hours a day. You have to be ready to be dedicated to school because it is no joke. And sometimes when you think, I got this, you may not. So just keep trying, try harder. I've had people get up to the last minute and, you pass everything and you get to that final and then you don't pass, and then they send you home. Well, if you really want to be one bad enough, don't let that discourage you. Just find another airline that's hiring. At least when you do it the next time, you know what to expect, what is expected of you. Work a little harder. Do it. Pass it. Of course, it's easier said after you've done it or crossed that bridge, but it still was hard. But I'm here. Many other flight attendants are here. Man, there's flight attendants at 20, 30, 40 years at doing it. And as the years go on, the money gets a whole heck of a lot better. I had one flight attendant tell me one time, and he was a mainline flight attendant for one of the larger airlines, and he says, I can serve somebody a soft drink for $65 an hour. I looked up at him, $65 an hour. And you think about it, these flight attendants been here 20 plus years. Yeah, that's possible. $65 an hour. As long as nobody gets sick on your plane, you're serving them a soft drink and some chips and stuff. $65 an hour. Guaranteed 75 hours a month. You make even more money if you do overtime. You get your 75 hours of guaranteed money. Then if you do overtime, that $65 an hour you were making now is on top of your 75 guaranteed hours. And don't forget per diem. Anytime you're away from your base, you get so much money per hour for per diem, for food, which is non-taxable. That can add up too. So when you start off, the money might be low, but if you hang in there, as with anything else, the money goes up. But you have potential to make even more, with overtime. And when you do the overtime, your per diem is still going up. Some airlines have bonuses because their company is doing well. Some airlines have where they send you to other cities or states to fill in because they're low, and they'll give you 24 hours, 7 days a week per diem, a place to stay, plus your guaranteed 75 hours, plus if you decide you want to do overtime. So the sky can be the limit on making money as a flight attendant. And sometimes it just boils down to serving soft drinks and snacks. So if you stay in there long enough. So anyway, if you want to be a flight attendant, that's a little bit of information for you. Now you be the judge if you think it's fit for you, or at least if you're willing to try. But all I have to say is always remember to smile, because you never know who may need one. And that's what they love to see you do, is smile. So you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Good luck in seeking your career, your future, whatever you want to call it, your interests, and be that flight attendant. Try it out. See, it might be just something that you love, something that's meant for you. I'm finding out that it was meant for me, so I'm enjoying it. Anyway, you guys take care. Have a great rest of your day, and maybe I'll see you up in the air. All right. Bye.